Good evening, and welcome to Stories for Sleep. I'm Jacob, your host for the night. Tonight we'll be following along the story of Jack as he sails across the oceans and discovers a new and beautiful world. Before we start, take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. Close your eyes and visualize a peaceful place where you feel calm and safe. Allow yourself to sink deeper into this peaceful state with each breath, and know that you are exactly where you need to be in this moment. Once upon a time, there was a sailor named Jack who loved nothing more than sailing the seas. He had sailed across the oceans many times and thought he knew them like the back of his hand. One day, Jack set sail on a new adventure, but he soon grew tired and decided to take a nap. Jack's eyelids grew heavy, and he couldn't resist the urge to close them. However, he slept for longer than he intended. When he woke up, he found that the ship had drifted off course and into a strange sea. This sea was like no other Jack had ever seen, for it was filled with a peculiar mist that made everything seem hazy and dreamlike. As Jack sailed through the Snoozy Sea, he couldn't help but be amazed by the mystical sea creatures he saw. He saw jellyfish that glowed with a gentle light, and schools of fish that sparkled like diamonds in the sunlight. He spotted creatures with iridescent scales and long flowing tails that resembled those of a dragon. They swam gracefully through the water, their tails trailing behind them like wisps of smoke. As Jack continued his journey through the Snoozy Sea, he encountered many other unusual and beautiful sea creatures. Some were friendly, like the giant sea turtle with a shell the size of a small island, who seemed to be smiling at him as he swam past. Others were more cautious, like the schools of rainbow-colored fish that darted away as soon as they saw him. One of the most stunning creatures Jack encountered was a group of jellyfish that glowed in the dark. Their bodies were translucent, and they pulsated with an ethereal blue light that was almost hypnotic. Jack couldn't help but be mesmerized by their beauty, and he watched as they floated by, trailing long, glowing tendrils behind them. Another creature that caught Jack's eye was a pod of dolphins that swam alongside his ship. They were playful and friendly, leaping out of the water and chattering at him as if they were trying to tell him something. Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of joy as he watched them, and he laughed as they splashed him with their tails. In the distance, Jack saw a large creature that he had never seen before. It was a giant sea serpent, with scales as green as emeralds and eyes that glowed with an otherworldly light. As the serpent approached, Jack could see that it had a mouth full of sharp teeth, but it didn't seem interested in attacking him. Instead, it swam alongside the ship, its massive body twisting and turning in the water. As the giant sea serpent swam alongside the ship, Jack couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and awe. He had never seen a creature like this before, and he wondered what kind of secrets it held. The serpent's body was at least 3 times the length of his ship, and its scales shimmered in the sunlight. Its eyes were large and round, with a deep green glow that seemed to see right through him. As Jack watched, the serpent opened its mouth, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. For a moment, he thought the creature was going to attack, but instead, it emitted a low, rumbling growl that seemed almost like a greeting. Feeling a strange sense of kinship with the serpent, Jack reached out a hand towards it. To his surprise, the serpent swam closer and nuzzled its head against his hand. Jack felt a sudden rush of warmth, as if the serpent was sharing some of its magic with him. As Jack continued his journey through the Snoozy Sea, he encountered more and more mystical creatures. He saw sea turtles that were larger than his ship, and schools of fish that moved in perfect unison, as if they were dancing to a silent melody. The sea around him was alive with wonder and magic. It was a place where the impossible seemed possible, and where the mundane was transformed into something extraordinary. After some time, the serpent suddenly turned and swam away from the ship, leaving Jack feeling a sense of loss. But just as he was about to sail on, he heard a melodic sound that he couldn't quite place. As the sound grew louder, he realized that it was the sound of singing. In the distance, he saw a group of mermaids swimming towards him, their voices growing stronger with each passing moment. The mermaids had long, flowing hair the color of sea foam, and their tails shimmered like precious jewels in the sunlight. As they approached the ship, Jack could hear their enchanting voices clearly. They sang a song that was both haunting and beautiful, and he couldn't help but be entranced by it. The mermaids swam around the ship, their voices filling the air, and Jack felt as if he was in a dream. As Jack continued his journey through the Snoozy Sea, he encountered many more mermaids, each one more beautiful than the last. But then, he saw her, the most beautiful mermaid he had ever laid eyes on. She had long, flowing hair the color of the ocean, and her eyes sparkled like diamonds. Her tail was a deep shade of blue, with scales that glimmered in the sunlight. As she swam towards him, Jack felt his heart skip a beat. For a moment, he was struck speechless. He had seen many beautiful things on his travels, but this mermaid was unlike anything he had ever seen before. As she approached the ship, she looked up at him with a shy smile, and Jack felt a warmth spread through his body. "Hello," she said, a voice like music to his ears. "Hello," Jack replied, feeling a little awkward. The mermaid swam closer, and Jack reached out his hand. She took it, and for a moment, they looked into each other's eyes. Jack felt as if he had known her for his whole life, even though they had just met. They talked for what felt like hours, about everything and nothing. The mermaid told him about her life in the sea, and Jack told her about his adventures on land. They laughed and joked, and Jack felt as if he was under a spell. One of her favorite jokes about mermaids was as follows: "Why did the mermaid swim across the ocean? To get to the other tide?" Jack felt a strange pull towards her. They talked for hours, and Jack found himself falling deeper and deeper under her spell. He told her about his adventures on the high seas, and she shared stories about the mystical creatures of the Snoozy Sea. As the sun began to set, the mermaid leaned in closer to Jack, her lips brushing against his cheek. Jack felt a sudden rush of emotion, and he knew that he was falling in love with her. They spent the night together, Jack lying on the deck of his ship and the mermaid swimming alongside him. They talked until the sun began to rise, and Jack knew that he couldn't leave her. He asked the mermaid to come with him on his journey, but she told him that she could never leave the Snoozy Sea. Her magic was tied to the sea, and she knew that she would wither away without it. Jack knew that he had to leave, but he promised the mermaid that he would return one day. He set sail, watching as the mermaid disappeared into the depths of the ocean. After 1 week of sailing through the vast ocean, Jack found himself longing to see the mermaid he had encountered during his last adventure. He was determined to find her again and learn more about her and the mystical world she lived in. With that in mind, he set sail in search of the Snoozy Sea once more. As he sailed through the ocean, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and anticipation. He wondered if the mermaid would still be there, waiting for him to return. As he approached the familiar misty sea, he spotted the shimmering green scales of the mermaid and knew that he had found her once again. The mermaid smiled as she saw Jack's ship approaching, and she swam towards him, her tail creating a flurry of bubbles in the water. As she reached the side of the ship, she reached up and took Jack's hand, pulling him towards her. The mermaid welcomed him back, and they spent the day talking and laughing, sharing stories of their adventures and discovering new things about each other. They explored the ocean together, and Jack was amazed by the beauty and magic that surrounded them. As the sun began to set, the mermaid took Jack's hand once again and led him to a hidden cove. The cove was surrounded by glittering coral reefs and filled with the gentle sound of waves lapping against the shore. There they sat and watched the stars twinkle in the sky, enjoying the peaceful silence. Jack knew that he had found something truly special in the mermaid, and he was grateful for the chance to spend time with her once again. They shared a moment of quiet understanding and companionship, knowing that they would always be connected, no matter where their journeys may take them. As Jack and the mermaid spent more time together, their connection grew stronger. They shared stories, laughter, and moments of quiet contemplation. But as much as Jack enjoyed being in the mermaid's company, he knew that he could never truly belong in her world. One day, as they swam through the ocean together, the mermaid turned to Jack and said, "I know you love the ocean, and I know you long to stay with me, but you can't stay as a human forever. You could become a merman and be with me here in the ocean forever." Jack was delighted by the idea that he could convert to being a mermaid, and said yes, jumping in the water with the mermaid. As soon as Jack jumped into the water, he felt a tingling sensation all over his body. The mermaid swam around him, singing a soft and enchanting melody. Her voice was like music to his ears, and it filled him with a sense of peace and joy. As she sang, Jack felt his legs start to fuse together, and his toes turned into webbed feet. His skin became smoother and more iridescent, and his hair turned a deep shade of blue-green. The transformation was both exhilarating and terrifying. Jack felt as if he was being pulled apart and reassembled all at once, but he trusted the mermaid, and he knew that she would guide him through the process. As the transformation neared completion, Jack felt a sudden urge to swim. He dove into the water, his new tail propelling him forward with ease. He swam around in circles, feeling the freedom and weightlessness of his new body. The mermaid swam alongside him, her tail flicking back and forth. She smiled at him, and Jack knew that he had made the right decision. Together, they explored the underwater world, darting in and out of coral reefs and chasing schools of fish. Jack marveled at the beauty of the sea, and he was grateful to the mermaid for showing him this wondrous world. As they swam, Jack realized that he had never felt more alive. He was no longer bound by the limitations of his human body, and he could explore the depths of the ocean with the same ease that he had once sailed across its surface. The mermaid swam up to him and wrapped her arms around his neck. They kissed, and Jack felt a surge of happiness and contentment. He knew that he had found his true home, and that he would never leave the sea again. As a merman, Jack found himself living a life that was entirely different from anything he had ever known. He discovered a world of vibrant colors and incredible creatures that he had only ever seen in his wildest dreams. He spent his days swimming through the endless depths of the ocean, exploring sunken ruins and hidden caves that held secrets beyond his wildest imagination. The mermaid taught him how to use his new tail and swim with grace and speed, and he soon found himself moving through the water with ease. He discovered that he had the ability to communicate with sea creatures, and he made friends with dolphins, whales, and even a giant octopus who shared its den with him. He learned how to catch fish with his bare hands and enjoyed eating them raw, savoring their salty taste and the sensation of the water rushing past him as he ate. Jack found himself drawn to the mermaid, spending hours talking with her and exploring the ocean together. They would swim through coral gardens and watch the sun set over the horizon, and Jack felt a deep sense of peace and contentment that he had never experienced before. As a merman, Jack felt more alive than he ever had as a human. He was no longer bound by the limitations of the land, and was free to explore the vast, uncharted expanse of the ocean. He felt as though he had found his true home, and he knew that he could never go back to the life he had known before. As time passed, Jack and the mermaid grew closer and started a family together. They had several children who were born with a mixture of human and mermaid traits. Their children were able to breathe both air and water, and they had long, flowing tails like their mother, but also retained some human features like fingers and toes. Their family lived in a coral castle, which Jack and his wife had built with the help of their friends from the ocean. Jack spent his days exploring the vast underwater world with his family and friends, and his nights sitting with his wife and watching their children grow. As his family grew, Jack felt a deep sense of happiness and fulfillment that he had never experienced before. He had found his true home in the ocean and had created a life that was beyond his wildest dreams. Together with his wife and children, Jack swam through the vibrant coral reefs, played with schools of colorful fish, and helped protect their ocean home from any danger that might threaten it. He had finally found a sense of purpose and belonging that he had been searching for his entire life. Jack knew that he had made the right decision in becoming a merman and starting a family with the love of his life. As he watched his children grow and learn about the wonders of the ocean, he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. Years went by, and Jack and the mermaid lived a long and happy life together, with their children and grandchildren swimming by their side. They had explored every corner of the ocean, discovering new wonders and making new friends along the way. As they lay side by side on a bed of pearls, watching the sun set on the horizon, the mermaid turned to Jack and said, "Thank you for sharing this beautiful life with me, my love." Jack smiled and replied, "Thank you for showing me a world beyond my wildest dreams. I am grateful for every moment we've had together." As the last rays of sunlight disappeared beneath the waves, Jack and the mermaid shared a final, loving embrace. And in that moment, they knew that their love would live on forever, as timeless and enduring as the ocean itself.